Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in today. This is Rich and DawnCheré Wilkerson. And you're actually, if you can believe it, right now in our home here in Miami, Florida. And welcome to our home. Hopefully you like it. And we just want to take a moment, actually, and we want to talk to you and share with you a little bit about our story. So many of you have sent in your prayers throughout the years. So many of you have cheered us on. So many of you have asked us questions really about our story. And you say, what do you mean your story? Well, we want to talk to you specifically about our story of our journey of infertility. Many of you who are watching right now, you know that we are pregnant. In fact, we are expecting our firstborn son.
Yep, there's 3 of us now here.
What's our due date?
Our due date is January 25th.
January 25th. We cannot wait for this guy to come into the world. But I thought, DawnCheré, or really you thought, both of us thought, as we discussed a little bit, that it would be cool to take a moment and maybe share sort of the whole story a little bit, because I think sometimes people have heard little fragments, little portions here and there of this experience that we've kind of walked through. And I think this kind of big disclaimer from the very, very beginning is that we're not telling anybody at all how to do something or exactly what their journey should look like. We're just going to tell our story a little bit. And our story, just as a disclaimer from the beginning, has always involved doctors helping us as we discovered that it was going to be challenging for us. But rather than maybe focus on that part, we wanted to focus on maybe just the miraculous power of God and just maybe the faith and the prayers of so many of you throughout these years. And so that's sort of the rules for what we're going to do. By the way, you look really pretty tonight.
Thanks, babe.
I feel like
you
you're
look great.
I feel like you're matching with the couch almost.
Yeah, we have a lot of neutrals going on.
Now, he does kick a lot, right?
Yes, he does.
Does it
He's
hurt when
been
he
going
kicks?
crazy today, but it's good. He's over 5 pounds already.
Well, he's going to come out just like a wild
Like
man.
you.
Well, hopefully.
It's true.
Hopefully more like you, to be honest with you.
I love that you said tell our story, because it's been 8 years of this journey and there's been so many different seasons.
Yeah.
And I think for everyone who's walking through infertility right now, you know, every story is different. The letters that we get, every story of every couple who's trying to start their family, the struggles that you face, the circumstances that surround you, they're different. But thank God that our faith is secure and that our faith is the same. It's our faith in Jesus. And I think that's been what's made the difference for us every step of the way.
Absolutely. I think maybe let's just start by maybe take us to the moment that you even found out that it was going to be maybe not so easy to get pregnant. Maybe kind of go back to that moment and just share maybe some of the story to kind of put some context around everything.
Well, it was a memorable day because it was my birthday. And so it was my 25th birthday. It was 8 years ago. And
25 is always a significant year.
25.
Renting cars, no insurance.
Quarter life crisis for real.
It's a big deal.
And I had to be at work that morning, so it was an early appointment. I think it was 8 or 9 a.m. And I just went in, and I'll never forget my doctor. She walked in, and she had done some blood tests on me because we'd been trying to have kids. We had started that year trying to start a family. And she just said, DawnCheré, your blood test results came back irregular. And she said, you don't fit the profile of what your tests are saying that you struggle with, but I am going to send you immediately to an infertility specialist because you're going to have difficulty starting a family. And I'll never forget that day. I mean, I was sitting there, I thought it was a routine doctor's appointment, and just thinking, what in the world? This is crazy. Like, you know, big family. My mom's given birth to 6 kids. My dad winked at her and she got pregnant. Like, it never crossed my mind that I would have any issue conceiving. And so that started the journey of a lot of tests and a lot of different seasons over the last 8 years. But you remember that day. What was it like for you?
I think that maybe throughout the whole process, I don't know if I ever realized like how serious it was until, you know, I think the years sort of go by. Like when you found that out at 25, did you know right away, like, wow, this is going to be an 8-year journey? No. Or did you kind of go, oh, okay, that's tough news, but it's going to be okay? What would you maybe say was your
I think I kind of felt like I could fix it.
Yeah.
I waited a whole year before I told mom and dad, before I shared, with the people that were closest with me. You were the only person that I talked to about it, because I just thought, I don't even want to worry anybody. I don't want this to be an issue. And really, to be honest, I didn't want it to be a label on my life. I didn't want to be identified with infertility. It made me feel uncomfortable. And so I just thought, I'll try to figure this out on my own. I'm sure by the time, next year wheels around, I'm going to be pregnant or close to it. And then, I turned 26 and was still in the same place, and had a lot of failed attempts and just wondering what to do. And I think a year in is when I started to share with the people closest to us.
Well, and I think one of the things that makes maybe the journey difficult for so many people, especially I think a lot of the questions that have come in that people ask you a lot, and just even when we get to sit with other couples that have maybe gone through this, is that for so many it's such a private pain that they feel like, I've heard all sorts of things, women saying that they feel like they're not, a complete woman because they're unable to have kids, or maybe shame. For so many, it's a private thing that they kind of keep to themselves. For you, I remember the first few years, you being very, very private about it. But at some point, you sort of kind of chose to say, I'm not going to stay quiet anymore about it. I'm going to go public with it. I'm going to talk about it. Maybe where'd that moment come from?
Well, it was a process of becoming comfortable with what we were facing and accepting the circumstance, but also not identifying it as my actual identity.
Yeah.
I had to come to a place, and it took me years. That's why I think it's really important that everybody's journey and story is different. Like, we're just telling our story. For me, it took a long time for me to come to a place where I was comfortable sharing it, because I was uncomfortable with the situation. And I think that it is a really private thing. You're going to the doctor, you're having tests, you have this desire in your heart to start a family, and there's nothing you can do about it. It's a really private pain. And when people start to ask questions, when you get engaged, people ask you when you're going to get married. When you get married, they ask you when you're going to have kids. Yep. When you have one kid, they ask you when you're going to have another kid. It's just casual conversation. It's harmless. But when you're in a place of pain, even those harmless questions can be shots to the heart. And you don't know how to answer, and you don't know what to say. And so it was a journey for me, and I think for every person. It's not something that you never pressed me to share it. And I'm so grateful for that. Like, you were never like, you need to share it with everyone. You let the Holy Spirit comfort me and speak to me and affirm my identity. And the Holy Spirit's so patient, and you were so patient. And it took years for me to get to a place where I was comfortable sharing it with several friends, and then more friends, and then to a place where in church I could actually be honest, even in ministry moments, about our journey.
Oh, I think, just a common probably difference between you and me at times is that I think that you, generally speaking, are a private person.
Yeah.
Doesn't really, and then I'm sort of a little bit more.
It's true. I don't know how that is. I came from such a big family, but yeah.
But I think naturally you're kind of more, reserved, private, and that maybe at times I can be a little bit more like, hey, just sharing it all. So I think that there was a bit of a slight tension in the sense that I remember just having a feeling of going, wow, if we're going through this, we ought to get everybody we know on board praying with us, agreeing with us.
Yeah.
And I was kind of under the notion, people would ask the question all the time, when you have kids? And once we did go public with it, my response just became going, we're practicing every day. Yeah. Whatever God wants to do his work, we're doing our part,
Yeah.
And I would kind of just make a joke out of it, but also at the same time be honest with where we were. But that's not everybody's, once again, that's not what everyone else has to do. That's maybe how I'm dealing with it, you're dealing with it. But I remember being so proud of you when you did decide to share your story. And I think for so many, the reason why the miracle matters so much more to many people is because they didn't just get to witness the miracle, they got to witness the pain, they got to witness the valley of it all, they got to witness the trial of it all.
Yeah.
It's like, what's a triumph without a trial?
Exactly.
What's a victory without a real challenge? What's a win? What's a story without a struggle?
It's true.
And I think many times people, they don't get to celebrate the victories of others because they don't really understand people's struggle. And I think when you decided to go public, you decided to share your pain, share your wound, when God did bring a miracle, I feel like so many people were able to celebrate with you because they were with you back then in the pain.
Yeah, well, God did a real work, I feel like, in my heart as far as securing my identity in those private times, of going, this isn't who you are. Like, you can have the freedom to share it publicly. You can share it with your community at church. People can ask you questions. They can say things. But your identity is rooted in being a child of God, And I think as women, I talk to a lot of women who feel like their womanhood is at question, that they are less than, that there's a piece of their identity missing because they're unable to start a family. And it's so real because I felt that way. But the truth is that infertility is not excluded from what Jesus paid for on the cross. If Jesus paid once and for all for us to be whole, for us to be complete in his love, then why do we act like infertility isn't covered by that?
That's great.
Our identity is secure in Christ. I had to come to a realization of that, a real honest realization that no, like I'm not known by what I can do or my ability to start a family or my health or even what we achieve or any of that. Like my identity is I'm a child of God, I'm secure, I'm loved. And I think also coming to a place of understanding, a lot of people, a lot of women have opened up to me, and I'm so grateful for their vulnerability, who are in ministry, and they go, what if I do share? It just makes me feel so uncomfortable. And I think I had to come to a place of going, it's not about me anymore. God's done enough for me in my life. He has healed my heart even before the miracles come to pass. He's secured my identity. He's been patient with me. Now it's time to be honest so that other people who are in a hopeless, desperate situation can know, hey, you're not in it alone. Like I haven't held the baby and I haven't seen the miracle come to pass, but God's faithful.
Yeah.
He's faithful. He's been faithful to us.
Well, and I think one of the big decisions that we decided to make as a couple was saying that with or without a baby, we're going to walk in joy. We're going to walk in peace. And if God doesn't have a baby for our future, well, then he's got something better for our future. And I think
It's true.
I think there's something about that of going, babies don't complete me, husbands and wives don't complete me, promotions don't complete me, my favorite job doesn't complete me, my dream doesn't complete me. Jesus is the thing that completes me. And I think more so than me, you were tested in this space. I think that as couples go through this together, so for sure I think that there's guys that are watching right now that have feeling pain or not knowing the right words to say. And I just think that as a man in the home, you just got to get in it and lead with it and walk with your wife through that thing and cover her and put value on her. And for me, I don't know, and everyone's story, once again, it's different, but I never had a feeling of going, man, I'm less than of a man, or we're not a full family. I did always have a calm confidence that it was going to come about. There were some moments, I think, where it's going, what if this doesn't happen? And that's where I think you and I had this decision in our heart that we're saying, even if it doesn't happen, we're gonna be the best two people we could possibly can be. We're gonna love our church. We're gonna love our friends. We're gonna love our community. We're gonna take advantage of all the things we can do, not having kids.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I just think putting your full weight down and going, the blessing's not the baby. The blessing is Jesus. I think one of the cool things on your journey is a story that happened to you when you were at Color Conference in Sydney, Australia, where you got a prophetic word. And you had many different people throughout the years give a prophetic word. By the way, if you're watching this and you're that person that always wants to give a prophetic word to every person that you meet that's struggling to have kids, I would just be careful with some of that, because oftentimes I know the intention is to say something nice, but believe it or not, when you're struggling to have kids, everybody has a word for you and everybody has some sort of thing to say. And most of the time, what people are just looking for is someone just to say, I love you, I'm praying for you, I believe it can happen. You don't need a prophetic word from everybody. But there are some people.
Yes.
There are some people that come around at the right time, that have the right heart, the right spirit, and minister to you in those moments. And you had a really cool story where someone did minister to you.
Right.
And it really encouraged you.
It did. There are moments. Our journey of 8 years, it really wasn't characterized by these huge mountaintop moments. It was really characterized by, I look back on God's continual faithfulness day in, day out. That as we read his word, as we spend time in worship, as we spend time in community, that our minds really are renewed.
Yeah.
And that we really can be given faith and peace and strength. And then when those moments that are supernatural and very special occur, they come out of nowhere and you're almost not expecting it, because you're walking in the presence of God and he's revealing his love to you. But I remember being at Color Conference, I don't know how many years ago it was, maybe 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And I was attending. I had flown to Australia to receive. I think it's so important when we're in ministry to set aside time to receive and to not just be always doing, but to spend time in community. And I was sitting there and I hadn't shared anything about our infertility journey with people. And a woman sat next to me at conference. Her name was Olive. She's such an amazing woman of God. I didn't know her at the time, but now knowing her, she's a pillar in her church. And she was actually in a very desperate situation in her family. Her husband had been given an awful diagnosis and was fighting for his life at the moment. And she still got up that morning because God woke her up and said, I have 2 people for you to speak a word over. She went to conference. She happened to sit next to me. God set it up. And I'll never forget, Craig Rochelle was speaking, and he was speaking about fear. And there came a point where he said, turn to the person on your left and right and pray. Pray for them. And we began to pray for one another. I prayed for her husband, and she began to pray for me. And then she just started to speak life over me. Wow. And I'll never forget what she said. She said, you are going to travel the world preaching the gospel with a baby in one hand and a Bible in the other.
Wow.
And you know, there are just certain moments in life that take your breath away because it's the kindness of God. And she didn't know anything about my story, but that became a picture in my heart of what God was able to do.
Yeah.
And the promise wasn't that for me from that moment forward, because I don't think the promise ever is a thing. I think the promise that we have to hold on to in our perspective as followers of Jesus is that Jesus is enough for me. You know, whatever happens. You and I came to that conclusion together, that whether we were going to have kids or not, that we were going to live a life full of purpose. We were going to live a life full of passion for Jesus. But it was a precious moment for me that I've looked back on so many days since and gone, I believe that with all my heart. Because I really feel like the infertility journey, it really is about perspective. And life is like that, right? Every situation in life, it's about perspective. The Bible says, as a man thinks in his heart, so is he. As a woman thinks in her heart, so is she. So the lies the enemy throws of inadequacy or of a piece of womanhood missing, if I can understand in my heart who I truly am in God, no lie of the enemy can try to distort or destroy that. But it's all about our perspective. And, you know, I know the holidays are really tough. I remember you and I trying to start a family before any of our siblings had kids, and now going into it, you know, how many grandkids are there? I think, you know, so many kids now born, grandkids, nieces, nephews, who are in school now, and they weren't even born when we first started trying. And I can understand the letters we get of, how do I handle the holidays? How do I handle baby showers? How do I handle the tough situations that cause pain? Yeah,
did you ever have like a moment of like jealousy or have a hard time celebrating others for their...
I think that it's a natural inclination to see what you so honestly desire and to go, man, why, God?
Yeah.
But I don't want to sound idealistic, but I'm going to be truthful to my journey. I felt very strongly that I couldn't compare. You know me, I love surprises. I love surprises. I love not knowing what's around the corner. And I felt like I had a picture from God of, you want what I've prepared for you, or do you want someone else's story?
That's great.
And I had to come to a place of expectancy, even when I walked into holidays or baby showers, of going, this is awesome, and I can celebrate their journey because it's not my journey. and God's got something for me.
I think one of the things that I've always believed, and especially in this space, is that I always believe that like that which you honor is what you will receive back. So like if there's something that you're attracted to or there's something that you desire, I've always wanted to be a person that's going to honor that and celebrate that.
Yeah.
And so in a practical space, if someone's preaching a great message,
Yeah.
I don't want to be the guy who's sitting there going, oh man, he's such a better preacher than me. If he's a better preacher than me, I'm going to tell I want to honor that because it's like I want to grow in that space. And so I think just a decision, I think it's good for people that are watching right now. Be a person that knows how to celebrate others' success. Be a person who celebrates other people's victories and miracles. Because I actually think that's unlocking so often our ability to receive the miracles that are coming our way just by being a person that says, I'm going to honor that, I'm going to celebrate that. And so I think from my brothers that were having kids to your siblings that were having kids to our best friends, I always wanted to be the best uncle.
Exactly.
And I always wanted to be the guy that those kids wanted to be around. I didn't want to be the grouch on the corner going, oh. No. And so.
And you don't want to miss out either.
Yeah.
Like I think I had to make a decision early on to just go, I'm not going to miss out.
Yeah.
I'm part of community. I believe in being planted. If I'm really planted, then no circumstance can make me run away from the community that I'm planted in. Like, I'm going to hold those babies even closer. I'm going to kiss them while I've got them in my lap and while I'm spending time with them. I decided I'm going to go to the baby showers. I'm going to love it.
Yeah.
And it's a perspective thing because I had to tell myself really strongly, get out of your head.
Yeah.
Stop thinking about yourself. Celebrate them and trust God for your story.
Yeah.
We don't want each other's stories. We want God's story.
But it goes back to, I think, always a gospel mindset that we think we deserve something more than what we have.
That's it.
And I think in Jesus, I want to make sure we keep saying that. It's like we've got everything we need.
Everything.
And anything after that is always just, we always say, it's icing on the cake. But what I love about that story about Olive saying a baby in one hand and a Bible in the other is that God does give us pictures that require faith. And I believe that God gives us pictures of the future so we can endure through the pain of the present. That there is something that I see and believe. And even though doctors might say it's really borderline impossible, and even though time might keep passing by, and even though it seems like I'm doing everything I possibly can, we get these visions and these glimpses and these images. And it gives us an ability, it gives us fuel to persist.
It does.
And you just stayed persistent. You continued to believe. And one of the most beautiful moments was, I think it was maybe 3 or 4 years ago when you were preaching at Color Conference in Sydney. And that was the first time you ever went public with the story. You shared the story of Olive, which I thought was just a prophetic moment because I believe that you will stand on a stage with our son with a Bible in one hand and a baby in the other. And there's something powerful about the goodness and the providence of God that 5 years ago he would have given you that language and that picture. And as you just stay faithful, consistent, trusting in him, not just doing nothing, but doing the things that are in your power. I think some people are maybe watching right now and, we've met people before that are in the faith world that when it comes to talking to a doctor, they just don't want to know bad news. And so they're in their 30s and they're still trying and they never even talk to anybody about what's going on because they don't really want to know. And, you can't solve problems that you don't know. No. And I would just encourage people out there. I'm not telling you have to do it, but I wouldn't be afraid to talk to a doctor. I think God gives us in this day and age people to help and come on the journey with us. And I don't want you to feel shame for that. I want to make sure that people feel freed up in many ways to go, I can talk to somebody. And you can decide to what degree you want to go through those types of things. I'm not prescribing anything for anyone, but I just want to make sure that the faith world doesn't limit people opportunities to talk to specialists and talk to people.
Well, I think that anytime we allow fear to pin us in a corner and to dictate our decisions, we're missing out.
Sure.
We've always said, that we want to run towards the things that scare us. And I think when it comes to feeling fear, if we're making decisions out of fear or insecurity, that's not from God.
Yeah.
Everybody's path is different and we learn to pace. we weren't constantly doing thing after thing, procedure after procedure. We would take time.
Right.
And we would rest, and we would feel like ourselves again, and we would enjoy community, and then we would trust and try to listen and wait and know when the time to start again was. But if fear is dictating our journey, we're never going to end up where God intended us to be. And I think it's really important to be able to identify those thoughts and to remove them.
Absolutely.
Because waiting can actually make you stronger. And I believe that that's God's purpose always in the wait. My favorite scripture, in fact, the one that my parents gave me when I was born, Isaiah 40:31. They that wait on the Lord shall renew their strength. They'll mount up with wings like eagles. They'll run and not grow weary. They'll walk and not faint.
Beautiful.
And I grew up saying that scripture, but man, it became really real to me 8 years ago. But the picture for me now of that promise is that in the wait, you're actually making progress.
Yeah.
That God makes us stronger. He renews us. You're not at a stop sign. And so as families, when we're waiting together, it is what you said. Jesus is always enough. And if we can keep our eyes on that, if I don't have one more thing in life, Jesus is enough, then that changes everything about our situation. It changes the way we walk into public settings, the way that we look at celebrations of others, because we have what we need. And Jesus is enough. And even in the wait, we're running forward. We're walking with strength. We're continuing to follow his path of purpose. And God is enough. You know, I think sometimes we say these things like faith and just continue to believe and have the right perspective, but it's real.
Absolutely.
He's been so real and so kind and so patient with us over the last 8 years.
Well, you had an 8-year wait, and 8 is the number of new beginnings in the Bible, which I think is pretty cool. And this year, we feel like the Lord really gave us a phrase, which was miracle in motion. And a miracle in motion means that it's unraveling and it's coming to be, it's coming to pass. If you don't have it yet, it's on the way.
Yeah.
It's kind of the phrase that we've given our church as we move into 2018, as we are in 2018. And I just think it's cool of God that 8 years, new beginnings, we discover we're pregnant. What did you feel like when you found out that you were pregnant? What was that like?
I don't even think it felt completely real until I heard his heartbeat for the first time.
Yeah.
You know, because the miracle is that your body doesn't immediately change, but there is life within you.
What sure has changed now.
Yeah, it sure has changed now.
Yeah.
It's changed a lot.
Yeah. You're not necessarily the girl I knew since you were 17.
You love it. You love it.
Oh, I love it.
I got the glow.
Yep.
But I didn't think it was, it took some time for it to sink in. Because we'd had moments where we really thought that we were pregnant over the years. Yep. You know? And then you get the call and the doctor says no. And you expected it to be different. And so I think even when we got the call, it was surreal. But watching the miracle over the last 8 months, it's been incredible.
And what do you think, looking back on your 8-year journey and the things you've gone through, you haven't met your son yet. I mean, you have, but you haven't held him yet all the way.
Yeah.
What is it you think that maybe you want him to know before he's even here in your journey, if you could think about it that way? If you're going, he's going to maybe watch this one day, what would you want him to know even before he's here?
I would want him to know that God is faithful. I think of Sarah, and the promise came to pass for Sarah and Abraham, and it says Sarah was faithful because she considered him faithful. And I think that all of our strength on our journey comes from knowing that God is faithful. We make mistakes. Our faith wavers. We go through highs and lows, but God is constant. He's been constant for us every step of the way. I want him to know that there's nobody in history who's going to walk the journey that he's going to walk. He's one of a kind. And that God adores him. And the greatest accomplishment, the greatest title is just to be loved by God.
Yeah.
That's enough for every season.
What's your greatest concern about being a mom?
Oh my gosh. Well, I feel like I'm pretty forgetful lately, so I just want to remember all this stuff that I'm supposed to remember.
Like what are we talking about, like car seats?
Like feeding times, and you know I'm not very nice when I don't sleep, so that's coming, buddy.
Do you see yourself being mean to him?
I see myself maybe being mean to you the first few months. I want to be nice, but I need sleep. You got to help.
And what are you most excited about being a mom?
I can't wait to see his face. I'm dying. I cannot wait to see his face. I'm so excited.
And what sports is he allowed to play? Football, basketball,
I don't want to,
baseball?
I'm the daughter of a football coach, but I'm not too high on the concussion thing, so let's figure this out.
He's a football player. I think he's definitely
a football player.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really excited about it. I think you're going to be an incredible mom. I think that the way that you've conducted yourself we've been married for 11 years, but I've known you since you were 17, but watching you go through this for the last 8 years has been nothing short of inspiring. And I think there's a lot of, women that are probably watching this, is my guess, and dads, just couples, people that are going through it. Maybe just any closing remarks that you would want to say as an encouragement to those that are watching. Not that you and I have all the answers, but sometimes it's nice to hear from somebody who's gone through the pain of it, that's gone through the challenge of it. I like that word through. I think it's one of God's favorite words that he takes us through. But what would you maybe want to just, in closing, maybe encourage people with?
I think I would just want to encourage you that you're not alone. I think infertility can make you feel isolated, like you're in a wilderness, like you've been exiled. But that's never been God's plan. Your private pain, you don't have to face it alone. God's given us community so that when we do go through the tough times, that's when community is the most important. For some reason, our humanity wants to run away when times get hard, but the truth is that we're so much stronger together. And for women that are facing infertility, maybe you've had a miscarriage this year, maybe you've had several miscarriages, maybe you've gotten a report from the doctor that you'll never be able to have a family. For the men out there who you are struggling with the pain of a bad report, I just want to encourage you, you're not alone. God is there with you. We are promised a peace that goes beyond our understanding. And I really think that God gives us that promise because the pain is real. Sometimes the pain goes beyond our understanding. We need a peace that goes even higher. And whatever you're going through today, I just encourage you, don't give up. Don't walk away. God right now is waiting to pour out his love on you. And he will meet you right where you are if you'll open up your heart to him. He's enough in every season. Mountaintop, he's faithful. Valley, he's faithful every step of the way.
It's beautiful.